Here we are. Great. So thank you so much for coming to the webinar tonight. So we're going to be discussing how to talk about sexual health with young people. And this workshop has been designed for parents, carers and guardians, which is very exciting. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that the webinar is taking place on Whadjuk Noongar Boodja, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Nala Kadich Whadjuk Mo Kayan Kadek Nija Boodja. We'd also like to extend our acknowledgement to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the lands of anywhere else on this Teams meeting. So we did want to introduce ourselves. My name's Bridget, and also co-presenting with me is Amy. And we're both health promotion officers with WAC. We did want to put a disclaimer for this webinar that we are in fact not parents. We're just young people, only just within the bracket of young people. But we do have extensive background talking to young people through sexual health education, and then our respective disciplines as well. So I did study sexology and health promotion, and Amy's in public health as well. So what to expect tonight, we've designed this to be a 101 for sexual health conversation, so a bit of a foundational beginning. We've made it broad to apply to children of all ages. It's going to be a bit of a 50 minutes of content and then questions at the end, and then the session is recorded as well. So hopefully this will go out to parents later. And we did want to provide a content warning that there will be some sexual health terms and discussions. So just a bit of a check-in with yourself for if anything is brought up as well. So the webinar is going to cover a bit about WAC, who we are. We're going to define what sexual health is, talk about why it's important to have these conversations, and then give some tips and suggestions and resources for more support. So I might hand over to Amy.
Cool, thanks, Bridget. So just going to talk about just a little bit about WAC as an organisation before we get started. So WAC has quite a rich history working with populations, beginning with populations people living with HIV founded back in 1985 in response to the HIV and AIDS pandemic. So it started as a community within the LGBTQIA+ community, and it was a AIDS line and palliative care service with 250 volunteers silver chain trained, kind of as an end of life service and support service. Since the foundation in the 80s, WAC has grown and developed into quite a multifaceted organisation. The landscape of AIDS and HIV has changed dramatically in Australia, and to where you can now live a long and healthy life with medication. The medication working so well that people living with HIV can have sex without a condom and direct blood contact with the other person and still not pass on HIV. So a bit more about WAC as the organisation. So this is a bit about what WAC does and the different branches within the organisation. So everything from education, training and health promotion like we're doing tonight. There's supporting LGBTQIA+ young people through services such as the Freedom Centre. There's also testing and sexual health services through the M Clinic. Also provide condoms and safe sex resources, counselling services, HIV support, and there is also a needle and syringe exchange program which aims to for harm reduction services for people who use drugs. Cool. Okay, so here at WAC with Education Health Promotion, we like to use a harm reduction approach. So this approach stems from reducing harm stemming from health-related behaviours. So it recognises some people will continue to engage in behaviours that have associated health consequences, but we aim to offer kind of a middle ground between abstinence and continued harms. So that people can be educated and have an informed approach to how they choose to approach anything, such as this example here. Instead of promoting abstinence, we would talk about using condoms or getting regular STI tests to reduce STIs. Along with that, we use a sex-positive approach. So sex positivity is more of an ideology that promotes respect with respect to gender and sexuality. It's about being open-minded and non-judgmental and respectful of personal sexual autonomy. So the reasons why we use this approach, so evidence suggests that a sex-positive harm reduction approach to sexuality education, both in school and out of school, promotes an understanding of human rights and access to healthcare without discrimination. This approach aims to provide people with accurate information required to make informed choices, like we discussed a little bit earlier, about their sexual health and relationships. In comparison to traditional abstinence-only education, harm reduction is associated with lower teenage pregnancy and better employment of other safer sex methods.
Great, thank you, Amy. So we'll just dive into a brief definition of sexual health. We use this video. I'll just show this quickly. Let me know if you can hear the sound, Amy.
Sexual health is the ability to. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
This is a hard question.
Sex. How you go about doing it.
I feel like it's so broad.
We're talking STIs, STDs, all of those. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, what I said was right.
So I think that's just a really good quick intro to the idea that talking about sexual health, we don't always know what exactly it means. So let's find a definition together. And the one that we generally use at WAC is the World Health Organization definition. And so with that, it's a state of physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being in relation to sexuality. So we're looking at it not just as the absence of disease, the absence of STIs or unhealthy relationships, but also the possibility of having pleasurable and safe sexual experiences. So really promoting a holistic view of sexual health. And then when we talk about it, we want to include all of these different words. So we want to break away from the idea of sexual health just being about sex and include all of these different topics. So it's about respect, it's about consent, it's about contraception and communication. It's about so many different things. And when I bring this up, I don't want it to be as a very scary, like these are all the things you need to know about. It's just you don't actually need to know all of these different topics, just to know that they're out there and that these are some of the things that we can start to think of talking about with our young children. And then when we talk about sexual health, it's so important to talk about sexual rights. So in the same way that we have human rights, they also apply to sexuality. And so again, this is World Health Organization and the sexual rights. I won't read them all out, but I did want to highlight just a couple, being the fact that we have the right to the highest attainable standard of health, including sexual health, and that we have the right to information as well as education. So highlighting the fact that young people do have a right to sexual health information, and we are so glad that you're on the journey to start that. So our sexuality evolves and changes over time. We wanted to also include sexuality as a definition because it's a bit like sexual health, but it's how it applies to you as a person. So this could encompass your idea about sex, your idea about gender identity, sexual orientation, eroticism, pleasure. It's all these different facets that apply to you and your sexuality, but it's over time. So when we're born, we're not actually devoid of sexuality. It's just that we have different ages and stages as we grow. So yeah. Anything else to add on there, Amy?
No, good, covered it all.
Awesome. I'll go to the next slide. So yeah, now we'll do why it's important to talk about sexual health with your children.
Ooh, okay, so childhood is a critical stage in the development of healthy habits, and it's a time where knowledge of how to maintain good health is attained. So with respect to sexual health, this is a time that we're with the I'm losing my wording, with when children and young people are exposed to information that is accurate, age and developmentally appropriate, and it's also non-judgmental, they can make sound decisions about sex and relationships. They know how to find accurate information from reliable resources. They know how to negotiate protected sex and other forms of safe sex, including safety and refusal skills. They can recognise situations that might turn risky or violent, and they know how to avoid or deal with them should they arise. And they also will be able to know how and where to ask for help and support. So when children are developing, there's a number of different systems that can influence them both directly or indirectly, influencing them and their health behaviours. One of the primary and the first of these influences to arise in their lives are at home, whether that be with family or their caregivers. They're obviously throughout life, there are many other influences that can impact where they receive sexual health information. Obviously, you have your school and health professionals, and there are also other sources such as peers, online and media, where they may not always necessarily, well, maybe one of the first places they turn to, but may not necessarily be the most accurate and helpful information for them. So good things can happen when parents talk to their children about sexual health. So parents and families shape the attitudes, norms, values, and sexual decision-making capacity of their children. So evidence has demonstrated that when confident parents openly discuss sexual health, children and young people are more confident discussing sexual health matters themselves, whether that be bringing up the question back to their parents that they had the conversation with, or whether that be asking questions at school, or just being more curious and more capable of asking questions should they arise. They also are more likely to delay their first sexual encounter, and more likely to use safer sex methods such as contraceptive and also condoms. And it improves sex self-efficacy. And apart from just the direct sexual health implications, it has overall improvement. It can cause an overall improvement in comfort and communication between parents and their children. There's also been a link showing that with the cooperation of parents and their involvement in their children's education, it can enhance academic achievement in schools. And this isn't limited to other areas of education. It does definitely include school-based sexuality education. So that being that they have that foundation they can go home to ask should they have questions, and to kind of support and link that learning between school and the home environment.
Awesome. So now we're going to get into the reason why we're all here. So tips for having sexual health conversations. So we've put together around 9 tips that we've drawn from research and journal articles, from Talk Soon, Talk Often, which is a WA Department of Health resource. But we're going to actually kick it off with another video. And this one is just demonstrating, giving an example of parents having the conversation with young children. And it's a bit of a laugh.
Do you know why we're here today?
For video?
We're going to talk about where babies come from.
Do you know anything about intercourse?
So, today we're going to talk about how babies are made and where they come from.
Would you like to know how babies are made?
Made of water. Humans are made of water.
Yeah,
I knew it.
That's true.
From God.
From God.
I thought it was because of God that sent us down into your stomach to be born.
To be born?
Sperm, egg, collide, blah.
What do you mean sperm, egg collide? Where did you learn that from?
Nick, duh.
Who's Nick?
My brother.
What did he tell you?
Bad stuff.
What makes me a man and what makes mom a woman?
You have bigger hands in her. There's some kind of hole here, like an igloo.
Oh, okay. So, Miles, you know that me and Mama are girls.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, is there a specific body part that you know of?
The place between the mommy's legs.
Oh, the vagina, right?
The vagina. You know, it's called the vagina.
Ah!
Yeah. Okay.
How do you pronounce it? Did I say it right?
It's called vagina.
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 Yeah.
Vagina. How do you say it?
How did your Tia Alice have her baby?
She came out of her butt.
Her butt?
Does it come through the bottom? The butt?
It came out of her vagina.
That's weird.
So when two people are in love,
Don't say that again.
Okay, one more love.
Melody, when two adults want to have a child, they have to have
Work
sex.
together. Work together.
Work
They have to
together.
work together, yes.
I said no more love.
No more love. All right. We're going to use another word. Mommy
No,
and daddy hang
no.
out.
The woman has an egg.
Egg.
Yes.
The mom provides the egg, and the dad provides the sperm.
Do you know where the sperm comes from? Where does it come out? Do you know
I
what
don't
comes out?
know.
The sperm comes out of your penis.
And when he releases that fluid when they're having sex, when they're making love, that makes a baby. I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
And when that sperm comes out of dad's penis into mom's body, then sometimes it can make a baby.
I did not know
You
that.
did not know that?
And there's lots of sperms floating around.
How does like the penis get to it? The vagina.
We want to talk about it medically? Like mommy's a nurse.
I
You
do
know
not
what
even
mommy
know what that
does,
means.
right?
And then how does daddy give the sperm to mommy?
They have sex.
What?
I told you Nick told me a lot of stuff.
So mommy and daddy got together and we took off all our clothes and we got inside the blankets so we were really warm. And then mommy and daddy did a special dance and there you were. That's how you were made.
Oh my gosh, that is really, really, really not good if you took off all your clothes off.
See this pocket?
Yep.
Okay. The pocket is the vagina. Okay? And in order to have a child, daddy has to put his penis in the pocket. Do you understand?
Ew.
So the penis goes into the vagina, goes inside.
Oh. That's really disgusting, you know. Or not. Oh.
Is this uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. You're gonna look at the world a lot different now.
Great. So, yeah, just a few comments on the video. Obviously, very adorable, very brave of those parents. So some of them are doing an amazing job. And then there's some areas for improvement as well. But I think the main reason for showing this is just to give an example to show what it's like to try to have those conversations and that it is possible and it is possible at a young age. So that brings us to tip number 1, which is to start talking early. And so with this, we recognize children recognize and are aware of sexual relationships long before they act on sexuality. And so with this, they need the skills to understand things about their bodies, about relationships and feelings from a really early age. We understand that by the age of 6, most children will show an interest in how babies are made, and that sexual communication initiated prior to their first experience of sex is the most effective and protective. So we've got a bit of a quote here from a parent of boys aged 4, 11, and 8. And they say, it seems a lot of parents leave it until children are too old or don't really talk about these things at all. I'm casually talking about it whenever the opportunities and questions pop up, and also have had longer one-on-one conversations when the kids had particular questions. So I always find it's nice to hear from people themselves about what they're trying and attempting to do. So awesome to see that. And then this is a bit of a blurry table here, but what we're demonstrating here is that young people are not devoid of sexuality. So sexual health topics can be introduced at a really young age, but just with the appropriate age and stage and evolving capacities of the child. So with under 4, you can expect some things like young people starting to show private parts to each other, removing their clothes and wanting to be naked, asking questions about their own and others' bodies and bodily functions. So for each age and each stage of life, you can kind of expect some general rules. Every child is different, but there are some resources that you can use to help understand what age is appropriate to have different conversations. And those resources are in the corner there. So Talk Soon, Talk Often. That's an online website that you can click on that link or type it in and find advice for the different ages and stages. And then the second link there, the sexual development and behavior in children, is where that table has come from. So if you have a young one and you're unsure where to start, a good area to start is for correct words for body parts, introducing the idea of public versus private, so some touches for at home, body autonomy and respecting no, feeling safe and knowing who to go to for help, learning about emotions and checking in with yourself, and some relationship skills as well. So again, all of the resources in the corner there can help support some of those conversations as well.
Cool. So tip 2 is to, I guess leading on from tip 1 there, is to tailor conversation to the age and stage that they are at. So the most effective sexual health education and those conversations are when the content is obviously accurate and scientifically backed, but also that it is information that is both age and I guess developmentally appropriate for a child or young person. So we've got some examples here about conversations about consent. So split between use of more younger and so with younger children and older ones, which may be older children, adolescents and young people. So with regards to the younger ones here, we're looking a lot more around setting boundaries, personal boundaries around consent. So whether it's playing, tickling, hugging or kissing, if they say no, it will be respected. So an example here is, if you don't want to hug auntie, maybe we can give her a fist bump instead. So it is creating those boundaries and then also reinforcing and respecting that their decision to say no means no, and to kind of, I guess, to build that foundation and understanding of consent. When we move to the older ones, it becomes a little bit more nuanced, start to explore a bit more of an understanding around consent in this example, or their understanding around different sexual health topics. So that may be asking questions about how might you know if somebody is ready to have sex, and what things do you think affect the ability to acknowledge or give consent. So it's really important to have conversations before they're likely to experience a situation or to go to the internet for advice. So these statistics here are from a national survey that is done every couple of years, and it's available from that link down there. This most recent one was published last year. So it's important, before I go through these statistics, to note that this isn't to say that all young people are having sex or are reaching their stages at this age. It's to say that some are reaching things at that age. Some might be younger, some might be older, some may not engage in these activities at all. It's also just to acknowledge that it's a guide, but that all young people are different. So the average age at which young people in Australia first experienced sex in this most recent survey was at 15 years old, but this differed between different sexual practices. So the youngest age there for this statistic is for viewing pornography, and the average age in this survey was 13.6 years. So some hadn't viewed it, some have viewed it quite a bit older at first, and some were actually a bit younger than that as well. Among young people surveyed, sharing sexual images, or the term sexting, was very, very common. So around 86.3% reported receiving sexual messages or images, and 70.6% reported sending sexual images or messages. And 85.7% of this statistic here is for people aged from year 10 to year 12. 85.7% of people by that age had already viewed pornography at some point.
And yeah, so we have the link there as well. If you're interested in these kinds of statistics, can also view that online as well. So that brings us to tip number 3, which is talk often. And so with this, we wanted to really challenge the idea of the birds and the bees talk, or the sex talk. So there's this sort of cultural idea that we talk about this once, and we talk about it when people have reached puberty. And we want to completely throw that idea out, and we want to make it lots of little casual conversations over time. So it's not just a sex talk, it includes relationships, buddies, puberty, life skills, all those terms that we had in that sexual health umbrella we mentioned earlier. And We are recommending this because we know from the research that repetition of sexual communication is more beneficial than a single conversation. So the more we mention it over time, the more the concepts are going to be understood.
Cool. So tip 4 is be clear and direct. So the most effective best way to approach sexual health education or those conversations with children and young people is to speak clearly and honestly. And those communication skills, they not only is it going to help to directly give the information to the child or young person, but it also, if you can show confidence in it, and I guess if you are uncomfortable, let them know that you're a little bit uncomfortable, but you can both work together. Towards being more comfortable talking around the topic. It can help the young person or the child to see that that you're not as uncomfortable talking about it and to be approached about these conversations. It's something that you can both work towards together. Very, very important to try not to use metaphors, vague terms or jargon, because this can be quite misleading. So this could be, it links to the next one below, labeling body parts correctly. So metaphors could be not using the stalk. An example from the video earlier was where one of the parents used the example of a pocket instead of using the term vagina. So it can be quite misleading. It may even be just explaining, that exactly how sex works and how each of the processes work using the correct name, the correct label. So labeling body parts correctly, especially important as well. They can also be quite a protective factor. So if a young person or a child, more specifically with their communication skills, if they are able to use the proper terms, it can be protective if in the instance where they will need to describe something that's happened and can use the correct terminology. We've got a quote here from a parent of a girl aged 7. So my daughter knew from the age of 2 that to make a baby you need sperm and an egg. When she was 6, she asked how the sperm got to the egg. I had a little panic attack in my head. I hid my panic as best as I could, and I said the sperm comes out of the penis and goes into the vagina. My daughter's response was, "Okay, can I have some toast?" So this, I guess, kind of not demystifies, but kind of shows that the conversations don't always have to be as uncomfortable. It could just be simply answering their question, and they don't see anything wrong with that. They'll just, cool, you've answered my question, and move on with their day.
Excellent. So now we have tip number 5, which is start the conversation. So often there's this expectation that when children are ready, they'll come to you with all their questions. But actually, we know that children expect and want you to start the conversation with them too. So how do we do that? We want to use open-ended questions. So things like why, how, what if. Doing that kind of allows for more storytelling, more back and forth, prompts more than just a yes or no answer. We want to do it in comfortable and safe places. And we want to seize the moment. So use whatever you can to prompt the question, whether it's books, movies, activities, things happening in their life, or teachable moments, we call them. So it's finding something that's happening around them that they're interested in that can sort of start that conversation. So we've got some example things on the side there. Sex Education is a Netflix TV series that a lot of young people are watching right now, and it is excellent for starting conversations. There's so many different topics in there that you could bring up. And we've got an example of how to do that as well, which is if you're watching a show with a teenager, and in that show there's some sex scenes, you could bring up, what age do you think a person is ready to have sex? How would they decide? And that's a better way of saying, instead of saying, have you had sex? Much less provocative. So yes, we also have a link there for conversation starters from the Talk Soon, Talk Often resource, which we are mentioning throughout this presentation. And I think there's around like 20 or so tips, so lots and lots of places to get started there.
Cool. Okay, so tip 6 is to welcome questions and to listen to their views. So whilst, like we touched on earlier, children and young children that they're influenced by their environment around, and the foundation of family in the home can be the foundation for values and attitudes and beliefs towards different things in the world, including sexual health. So when it comes to talking to children and young people about sexual health, it's important to demonstrate that you, first of all, are a safe person to go to should they have any questions that arise. So whilst you have your own values and they are often imparted onto your children, it's important to know that, or I guess to acknowledge that while growing up and through the different developmental stages, that they will begin to kind of formulate their own views on the world, and these attitudes and values may differ slightly from your own, but it's important that as a safe person and creating an environment that is safe for them to go to you with questions, despite them if there is differing in values, that there is no judgment imparted on should their values be different or attitudes towards certain topics. It's okay to not know the answer to everything. Please don't make it up. It's this, again, like we said a couple of slides earlier, that should you not know what it is, or should you maybe be a bit uncomfortable to approach a particular topic, that may be an opportunity to go and find out together. It may be finding one of the resources like the Talk Soon, Talk Often, the booklet, and that may be an opportunity to sit down together to go through whatever the questions the young person or child may have. We've touched on there, everyone has their own unique set of attitudes and values, and as a parent you can help them to grow and learn about yours, and you can learn and grow about theirs as well.
So now we're on to tip 7, which is challenging the culture of shame and stigma. So we wanted to bring this one up because we acknowledge and understand that shame and stigma around sexual health exists and can be very difficult to navigate. And that's not just for you, but also for your young person. Embarrassment acts as another barrier to having these conversations, and that if we recognize that it's quite normal for parents to feel that, then we can start to divert that and change the narrative. So if we are feeling embarrassed or feeling a little bit of shame or stigma, we can use various coping techniques, and there's quite a few mentioned here. So you can do another activity while you're talking. That could be anything that they're interested in, anything that you're interested in, driving a car, talking about homework, whatever it is. You can use books and pictures to explain sex and relationships, and there's plenty out there that are quite good at the moment. You can use stimuli from everyday life. You can use humor and laugh. You can get other adults to help you out as well. So maybe that's asking an auntie or a cousin or somebody in their life that they trust, that they might have a close relationship with. And if you need to, use that poker face. You can also admit to it. So yes, I'm feeling a little bit embarrassed, but I want to keep trying to have the conversation because I know it's important. I find like when I was a young person, if adults around me could admit when they were feeling embarrassed, or when they were like, oh, I'm not too sure if I've got the answer to this, it was quite a good, it's quite a relieving experience to know that they were human as well, and that you're on the same journey. And then we want to encourage dads to speak up as well. So with the research, it sort of suggests that dads have been left out of the conversation a little bit, which also means that there's some young boys being left out of the conversation too. So we want to encourage men to get involved in the sexual health conversations.
Cool. So tip 8 is to normalize and validate. So one of the most common questions you hear from young people growing up is, am I normal, and is this normal? So it's important to validate how they're feeling. So whether that be understanding and validating that if they're upset or they're confused, embarrassed, whatever that emotion may be, and to validate their experience as well, and to normalize their experience as well. So it's very normal that could be reassuring, saying that, it's very normal to feel that way. And this can be both for emotional topics and also for the more physical topics as well. So whether that is understanding their own body and seeing where they fit in and with body image. So reassuring that bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and that there's no one size fits all to approaching relationships. So we've got some resources linked here. They're both some pretty cool resources for body image and showing off shapes and sizes. So you've got the Labia Library, and then there's also Manhood, the Bare Reality. Labia Library is a website that you can access, and the Manhood is a book that is available online, I believe. There is also a video we've linked here. It's coming up saying video not available, but you can search this one up either online, I believe through ABC iView. So if you've heard of the show You Can't Ask That on ABC, there's a really good episode where they interview people with different intersex variations. So that is not only, I guess, educational for anyone that's not living with intersex variation, but also it might be useful for parents if your child or young person in your life is living with intersex variation themselves. It doesn't go into, I guess, the physical representation per se as graphically like the other two resources do, but it's a very unique and not always heard insight that people living with intersex variations have to share.
Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like You Can't Ask That is also another great one for starting the conversation as well. As a resource, that one, there's so many different topics that are covered in that. Welcome to have a little search through the archives to see what ways you can spark conversations. So tip number 9, and this is the final tip: when you need to, refer on. So we understand there's a lot of pressure on parents to sort of be on the ball and be able to answer questions when they come up, but actually we can't know everything, and we won't always have the answers, and that's okay. So when you need to, the most important thing is knowing that they can come to you even if you don't have the answer, but that you're a safe and trusted person and that you can support them to find the right information. And so this next section will be resources that you can use to connect your young person to, or that you can use for self-knowledge for upskilling in different sexual health topics. But before I skip to the next slide, I just wanted to say this quote, which is, "They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And I feel like that one just sort of leaves a bit of a warm and fuzzy in relation to that. So resources for support. We have, this is the resource we've been talking about all night, Talk Soon, Talk Often. We got a lot of research from this, and it's pointed us in quite a few good directions. So Talk Soon, Talk Often is available online. It's a click-through website resource as well as physical copy book. And Yarning Quiet Ways is a similar information, but just catered towards Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And both of these resources are incredible guides for how to have conversations. There's some upskilling on different topics as well. So if you're unsure about puberty related things, there's a puberty section. If you're unsure about sexting, there's a sexting section. A really incredible resource. We also have the Sexual Health Helpline. So this is a phone number that you can call from Monday to Friday during these hours. It's staffed by sexual health nurses. They are very good at answering curly questions. I think they often get questions around contraception, STIs, all that kind of stuff. So sometimes that can be a good resource for yourself, but also if you want to show your young person how to access good quality advice, then you can call the number with them. We also have some cyber safety resources here. So the eSafety Commissioner on the left, that one's a incredible resource for it's online resources around cyber safety, but it's also a great resource for anything to do with what's the word I'm looking for? Image-based
abuse. Yeah.
Thank you. So the eSafety Commissioner has the ability to take off content from the World Wide Web. So for example, if your young person has an image shared of them that is non-consensual and they'd like it taken down, the eSafety Commissioner can work with them to help have that happen. They can work with the police, but they can also work without the police. So that's a really great resource to share. And then we also have Legal Aid WA. So again, a lot on cyber safety, but also if your young person has any legal troubles, they're a great resource too. We have Sexuality and Disability, so SECA. They're a counselling advocacy and support service for people with disability. And they have online resources as well as physical copy stuff. What's really great about these resources is they're quite plain English, as well as sequencing with images. So it can be even good for people where English is a second language as well, or if you have a really young person, or if you just have somebody who needs images as well as text to be able to understand concepts. That resource, Sexuality, Relationships and Your Rights, can be, you can access that for free as well if you go on their website. We've got some LGBTQI plus resources. So Q Life is a really great phone call service. So anybody within the LGBTQI plus community can give them a call from 3 to 12 p.m. every day. And then people who support them as well. So family and friends can also call them up for advice. And then the Freedom Center. So this is a branch of our organization. And it's a social space, connection space, workshop space for young people who are LGBTQIA+. And then this final slide just has a couple more supports. We've mentioned SHQ there, but there's also SARC, the Sexual Assault Resource Center, and Headspace, so mental health as well. And then finally, this is just some of the references that we used. More than welcome to check these out for more information as well. And then we'd like to thank you for being here. So this is now the end of the presentation.